Hello everyone, Ogre27 Kane here today, and we're gonna do a review of Metroid Dread for the Nintendo Switch. Let's do a real quick overview of what this game is, what to expect. This is the 5th installment in Nintendo's long-running 2D side-scrolling series. Metroid 1, of course, was redone as Metroid Zero Mission. Metroid 2, of course, is Metroid Return of Samus. Metroid 3 is Super Metroid. Metroid 4 is Metroid Fusion. And of course, this one makes Metroid 5. I want to say it completes it, but they leave a little bit of room for a Metroid 6. Let's get into some other details about what this is. I know some people may think that this game is just fan service, but that's completely untrue. This game is a standalone, and definitely one of the best in the entire series. It's really hard to rank all of them, especially with the remakes of Zero Mission and Metroid 2 3DS, but I definitely need to sit down and try it someday. I'm really intrigued. This game is definitely the best Metroidvania on the Nintendo Switch, and a must-play in every way, shape, and form. Well, let's start out with the first category, the gameplay. The gameplay in this is exactly what it is, a Metroid game. It has the best exploration, action, adventure you can possibly imagine, combined with awesome upgrades, really cool and unique powers, and a storyline to match. On top of that, even though it's only a 2D game, this is pretty much the pinnacle of art and animation in this generation to me. This is the best looking and one of the best performing games on the Switch in my opinion. Never did I have any issues with any of those categories. This game is a blast to play and absolutely gorgeous to look at. Anyways, back to the gameplay. The gameplay loop in this has you explore the world, find power-ups and upgrades, defeat bosses, find new pathways to go, and explore to get to different areas in the world. The cool thing about this is none of this just leads you by the nose. Yes, there are some different plot and different dialogue things that take you there, and yes, the computer does give you hints on the map, but that does not by any means, way, shape, or form lead you by the nose. What's cool about this is an old school style game, and this is something I've been craving for a long time. The only other thing I want to say is that this game can be pretty darn difficult, so get ready for some tough action. Let's get into the next category now, the combat. Speaking of tough action, this game has some crazy fun combat. Even though it has some different options from some of the earlier Metroids, everything that they put in this game works pretty well. All of the power-ups generally do what you want them to, and there's not really any problems as far as any technical glitches or errors. You have your blast cannon, which has different forms of energy weapons, and then of course you have different missile options as well. You also have the morph ball, which can utilize power bombs and regular bombs and some other little cool tricks. I'm not trying to give away too much of the options for the combat in this game because they're some of the best parts, but I do have to speak a little bit, and one thing I really do want to mention about this is the grapple hook. The grapple hook in this game has a lot of really useful things. The other thing, of course, I have to mention is the melee counter. Now, the melee counter in this comes from the 3DS remake of 2, and although it's there and it does its job, it can get kind of frustrating, and when you have something that really depends on its usage, it can set you back for a ways. Now, get good at your timing is really all I can say, which really sucks because that's not really something you want to say about it, but that's really what the game tells you. You just have to utilize its mechanic. But other than that, the combat in this is definitely solid and one of the best. Let's talk about the story now. The story in this game, of course, takes place after Fusion. Now, Samus has gone through some things, and if you know anything about that story, then you know it's maybe just a little bit more than physical. Maybe a little bit of psychological and mental damage was done to her as well. The Chozo in this game chooses to kind of utilize that. He attempts to, for lack of a better word, mutate you. But Samus becomes kind of aware of what's happening, and she takes her time through it. The Emmys are these robots that are in the world that are there that were kind of there for exploration that got corrupted and now they're sent against you. And the Emmys at first I really thought were a huge plot point and was really interested in them. Once you kind of play the game, you realize that they're just kind of there, which is kind of sad in a way. That's really the only negative thing I want to say about the story, and that's only because I shared a lot of disappointment for it with a lot of the early crowd. But it definitely has a lot of really good positive plot points, and it carries on the story continued from the original Metroid series. You are definitely invested, and you want to figure out what the Chozo are up to, and of course there are several good and bad Chozo that you need to figure out and understand their methods. But frankly, if I give you too much more, I might spoil it, and I don't want to do that. So I think next up we should talk about the controls and the audio. Well, let's start out with the controls first. The controls in this game work fantastically. They're very, very sensitive and they react quickly. I never really felt like anything that happened in the game was my fault. The movement of Samus is pretty typical as well if you played any of the other Metroid games. The nice part is she's a little bit quicker in this one than she was in Return of Samus, so the buttons do feel a little more comfortable. The other thing too is that the melee counter is a little faster, I believe, in this one and a little bit more responsive. That plays into the controls as well, and I think that the other thing that we should mention is that you can always invert your axis and change the sensitivity of the controls too. Now that being said, let's talk about some audio. The audio in this game is absolutely amazing. All the ambient sounds are perfect, all the 3D effects that it has, all the background music is really, really good. I want to say that the tracks themselves, at times, I wish they were louder almost, because I enjoyed the music so much more, but then again, it was trying not to get in the way of the action, so being with the sound effects involved and everything else going on, they did a really good job mixing everything. The only other thing I really want to mention is that if you can play this on a TV with a good surround sound setup, it sounds really good. So I totally recommend trying that out. Well, let's hit the graphics and animations last. For a 2D game, this is definitely one of the best looking and best performing games on the Switch. You really can't go wrong. Nintendo's artistic style is completely on point. Nothing in this looks cartoony or cel-shaded or anything that I wouldn't expect from a top-notch level developer. Just like every other Metroid in the entire series, aside from maybe the very first one, this is a game you're going to be able to look at in 20 years and say, wow, that's amazing. Very much on the level with Metroid Prime, and if you go back and look at that on the GameCube, you will be just as astonished. I know Mercury Steam is kind of a smaller developer, but Nintendo pushed them really hard and they took the challenge to heart, and I appreciate all of their work. Mercury Steam, you guys are absolutely brilliant. I do have to mention that I have a couple of their other games, such as Castlevania Mirror of Fate on the 3DS and Metroid 2 Return of Samus, and although those games look absolutely fantastic, this game right here is on another level. So let's hit the conclusion now. Well, in conclusion, this is a 10 out of 10 must buy. This is one of Nintendo's top-notch properties and top-notch games. They've pulled out all the stops on this and given us a sequel worthy of the Nintendo Switch. It's a very high bar and a high standard, and Nintendo's worked really hard this generation to provide us with really good games and great content. This is definitely one of those games, and it deserves the $60 price tag. If you don't agree with that, I'm sorry, but then again, this is not a game for everybody. If you enjoy Metroidvanias, or you like action-adventure games, then you will definitely enjoy this. This is the best game to play on the Nintendo Switch for the exploration and the action-adventure side. Well, that was my review of Metroid Dread. I absolutely love this game, and I love this series. I am so stoked that Nintendo chose to give this to us, and they couldn't have provided anything better. Well, thank you for watching today's video. It was an absolute blast to make. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. This is Ogre27Kane, signing out.